Good morning, everybody. How is everybody doing today? Oh, there we go with the headbats immediately. 1 second. There we go. Had to get nice and wrapped up in my blanket this morning. I'm so cold. Honey, I am so cold. Who told the weather it was allowed to get this cold? Which one of you do I have to blame to get the weather to be warmer again? Which one of you raise your hand? Who did it? Who did it? Why are you making the weather cold? You're so mean to me. Don't you all be raising it? You all work together to conspire against me. Awful. You made the weather cold, and here I am, sitting all wrapped up in a blanket, just wishing I could be warmer, and you won't let me. Not fair, not fair. You'll send me Florida weather. You can keep your hurricane, but I will take the heat. I will take the heat, please. Alright, you didn't do it. You were working on lore. Valid. Very, very valid. How about we all just hibernate from now on? I'll just turn the stream and call it the hibernation stream, and then you can just listen to me sleep for like the rest of the year until it's warm again. It will be 8 Celsius today. That's no. No. Blanket forts. Are blanket forts warm? I haven't done a blanket fort in like years. I'm also eating a sandwich. Alright, voidlings, I've decided that today I'm bringing chairs and furniture down to the basement. That way we can build a massive, massive pillow fort. Also, I like your name, Pee on the side of the toilet. Did you name yourself that because you do, or did you name yourself that out of spite for somebody who does? Okay, we'll do a big old blanket for it. That would be a fun game. Imagine that. A game where you, out of spite. Valid. I think that's what I said at the second one, right? I forgot. My brain is so gone. Well, I think. Oh, yeah. I think a game where you just build a blanket fort would be really nice. Oh, here comes the bonk and the lag with the bonk. When were you in the cage in the basement? What do you mean, sweetie? Obviously, since now and forever. I mean, I guess we can do this one sec. Are you ready? See? This is my basement, isn't it? So very, very lovely. You can see the nice little walls and all the little things, the little desks that flow around. And then while you stand there, not moving, I just do that. Mm-hmm. Cage time. Enjoy your cage. Enjoy your. It does look really cold. You know, I got this. I'll get a fire going, okay? How's a fire sound? You know what? Fine, 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 fine. Because I care about you all so very, very much. I'll move you all upstairs, okay? Who'll move upstairs today? There we go. Is this better? Is this better for you? You can stay warm up here, okay? You're still staying in a cage, though. Old weather's perfect for warm, cozy banquets. Old weather, not cold weather. Nope, it's too late. We're gonna be talking about old weather. Well, I don't trust you to stay if I don't keep you in the cage. That's how we're getting close to, streaming. Being a partner. Did I make you coffee at least? No, not this morning. I made you G-Subs. G-Subs energy. We're gonna heat it up so you can have, like, actually, that might not be bad. Do y'all know about Glühwein? Do y'all know about Glühwein? So Glühwein is a mulled wine. It's a German wine thing that's a hot wine. Very tasty. They put cinnamon and clove and all this stuff in it. It's so good. And you drink it during the wintertime. Well, there's a child version called Kinderpunsch, which basically just stands for child punch. I realized there's none of my secondary music track down here, so I have to do this real quick. Okay. Once. I gotta fix something real quick. We'll talk about Glühwein in a second. There we go. Okay, all better. Anyway, so Kinderpunsch is the child version of Glühwein, which is like it's hot, fruity kind of drink, but it's very tasty. And so I realized if I were to take G-Subs and heat it up, it might be like Kinderpunsch. So warm G-Subs might not be bad. I might try it. Oh no, I have an idea. What if I start touting the deliciousness of hot G-Subs to see if G-Subs will get attention from me? I have done G-Subs in the soda stream and it is perfect. It is perfect. It is like a lovely little energy drink. So I guess our next experiment is to make hot G-Subs. Have you all ever seen the warm Kool-Aid guy? It was an old YouTube thing. Where he goes, drink your Kool-Aid, brother. He's like, I don't want any. He's like, drink your Kool-Aid. I made this for you. G-Subs in the soda stream is so good. It is so good, so smart. G-subs might be the solution for you. You need to get a soda stream. Honestly, it is amazing. I do think it's funny that G-subs exists in a world where it is almost impossible to talk about it in normal company. And we're gonna talk about it a little bit. Oh, it's very different from, I mean, G-subs on its own, since it's not carbonated, is not like Monster at all, but it does give you good energy, like equivalent. But imagine this, you wanted to tell somebody about all the flavors you like. And so you go up to somebody, you go, hey, you should try G-subs. Flavors that I like, well, there's anime girl thighs, titty milk, which is now Schlatt milk. There is guacamole gamer fart, I think it's 3,000 or 9,000. And then doggy style, yes. And they'd be like, well, what do those taste like? Grandpa's ashes? Yeah, Sandwich is almost done. One sec, let me finish my sandwich. And you see, the thing is, my favorite one is brand risk, which is great. Brand risk is such like a normal name for a flavor, except it does also have the big titty lady on the front of the box. So I feel like if you'd have this in a household with kids, you probably need to censor most of the containers. The brand risk is delicious. Thank you for the follow, Maria. Thank you. And I'm looking forward to trying some of these though, because they also make ones with like melatonin infusion to help you sleep. So yeah. One day we'll get up to the G-subs flavors. It'll be so cool. Addie Rowlands? What is Addie Rowlands? Oh, Addie Roll. I like it. I wonder if I can name something Adderall or if that's a trademark name. What do you think? G-subs has a caffeine full, caffeine free, and a help you sleep version. Very cool. Yeah, I mean, I guess puppy juice is okay. Hashtag not sponsored yet. Hashtag not sponsored yet. Exactly. We're waiting on it. I'm gonna keep checking my email constantly, like a schoolboy obsessed with a girl waiting for a text back. And then I'm gonna get denied on my date to the dance, and I'm gonna cry. Just kidding, I won't cry. Except maybe. Alright, we're gonna come through and start listing off all of the people who are here today. So first off, thank you for getting first cut on me, huh? Thank you for getting second, Spooky Kaz. And thank you for getting third, Cade. Next, we'll say hello to everybody who's checked in. So hello, Glitch and Spooky Kaz, and hello, Sleepy and Dumpster and Spam. Hello, Poison and Ziggy and Dragon. Hello, Anya and Onyx the Wolf and Ghostly Nightlight. Hello, Cade and Zombie Biscuit and Cinder. Hello, Estrella. Hello, Unicorn Tamer and Moreau. Hello, I love different fandoms and gibbets. Hello, Carmia and Fair Lady Monroe. Hello, Monroe. Monroe, sweetie, it's been a little while. Hello, Nap Time and Julia and Sagona. Hello, Sleepy Sunny Puppy and Elliptical Panda. Hello, Asher and Uno Potato and Celine and Dasha. Hello, Meow Kitty Cat and Little Mouse and Moo Moo Mia. Hello, Zhao Wu. Hello, Sunny the Sunshine and Bexlin. Hello, Brooke and Universal and Chicken Witch. Hello, Jinxie and Lynx and Kane. Hello, Elliptical Panda, Echo and Hordling. Thank you for the hydrate, Hordling. I have not drank water this morning. Good morning, Human. Wow. There's a lot of eyes in that name. Hello, Nelia and Ocean and Sleepy. Thank you for the headbands. Hello, Amy and Deshawn. Maria, thank you so much for the follow and welcome to the Menagerie. I am such a good doggy. Thank you for the redeem, Spooky. My Chemical Flame. Good morning, thank you for the jacket, and good morning, Calenthia. And Lunar and Shadowy. And good morning, Honey Bee. Carmia, why would you tell me that? Now I know you weren't here, and I'm afraid that I was all alone. Thank you for the lick, Black Cat. You left me here all alone. Alright, I'm testing something today, so we're gonna swap over to the ASMR category now. Because we won't be just kind of chilling and vibing today, all alone with all these people. But, like, you have to protect me, Carmia. You fight people off just in case. I need you to. Yeah, I might have. I'm sorry, Gummy. I got into all the cleaning supplies and I drank bleach. And now you have to take me. I ate a chocolate bar and now you have to take me to the vet. Good morning, normal people. Well, you win some and lose some. Kamiya's gonna put me down. I'm gonna get put down. Oh no, Gene, you ate a chocolate bar. Guess what? We're putting you down. But you can make the dog, like, you know, spit it up. No, we're just gonna put you down. I want to play some games, right? Because that's what the morning is, but I'm so cold. Good morning, Jesus. I don't want to move my arms from underneath this blanket. Wait, do I have a blanket? We're going to see if I have a blanket real quick. Give me a second. I might have a blanket. We have a blanket now. Yes. Oops, one sec. I need to. Perfect. There we go. Okay. What if I made it? What if I do? Right about there? Yes. Okay. Well, you know what else I can do? I have another one. I might have a better one. We're gonna try it out, okay? One sec. And then we put on the back side. Almost. Okay. There we go. Yes. Get my little cozy blankets. Because I'm so cold. Why am I being bonked? Why would you want to bonk me? It's so mean, so rude. Oh, it's almost there. Start getting everything lined up. That'll do. Alright, how's everybody doing? You like my cozy blanket? Have none of you had breakfast yet? You'll eat breakfast. Okay, yourself some food. Go eat something. Bring me back a sandwich. I am hungry. I want more food. I know. It's hard to line up because I can't. I have to click on this one here. I do this. I can do this. There we go. If I move too much. There we go. There we go. I fixed it. Hi, Big Billy. How you doing? Anyways, it's not too early for breakfast. It's never too early for breakfast. It's time. We have options. Do we want to do a little peek this morning? Or do we want to do some Minecraft? It's not too late for breakfast. Minecraft? I think I can go for some Minecraft. Yeah, let's do some Minecraft. I don't want to think. I don't want to think. There's no brain in here right now. My brain has left. It went to fight the war. Dude. You forget that it's possible for me to think. Rude. No, it doesn't. Crafting is different brain. Crafting is cute brain. That's right. That's right. Crafting falls into my cute brain brain. Boom, 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 boom. My face is filled with marshmallow fluff. sure. You can make it through this. The pain you feel now is nothing compared to the normalcy you'll feel once it's over. I believe in you. There you go. We're gonna swap to the game screen. Make it big. There we go. Am I grumbling? I just do a little grumble. Good morning, Pinky sweetie. How you doing today? Southern voice is easy to do in the morning. I can definitely do it. See, ain't even a bit of difficultness this voice can do with me. But I ain't got a single thought right now in my head, so the words ain't wording right. Grumbling's cute and alright, we got a bit of a even purpose. That's my favorite dog. Are you telling me you know other dogs? Who's allowing you to have other dogs in your life? And now I have a blanket for it. That sounds amazing. I could go for... Oh, I didn't turn off though. Give me a second. We're gonna turn off a redeem that I can't do. Me a jealous king? What do you mean jealous? I shouldn't need to be jealous. That sounds like you are doing something wrong. I go around and I come by and I sniff you, and if I smell a different dog on you, I'll be like, I see that you've been with somebody else, you harlot. Was having a nightmare, so happy to wake up to see you on. I got you. Nightmare. Or you could well, that doesn't count. Real dogs are different. What am I doing? I think my fan is on. 1 second, I gotta turn that off. Ooh. I gotta tell you something. I gotta tell you something right now. You know what I got right now? I have a second blanket. I got a second blanket, chérie. Mon ami. And I have been stacked up with all them blankets. I am, first off, I got a thick yellow blanket sitting across my legs. And then I got a nice fuzzy blanket over my shoulders. So I can actually game now. Pardon me, I never wear pants in my morning stream. I wear the British version of pants. Don't you be misleading the lovely people here. Cinder, put me in that oven. Cinder, put me in the oven. put me in the oven. I'm so cold. Put me in the big heat oven. Burn me until I ain't got to worry about a thing. 500 Celsius. Cook me. I got this. I'm so ready. I lost my little tunnel. Where'd my tunnel go? I made it deeper. Ain't that fun? Alright, if I were a tunnel, I would be in this direction here somewhere. I was being weird. I'm always being weird. Why'd you come in here and accuse me of that? Okay, the tunnel is here somewhere. You remember the tunnel? It's here. I made it. Where is it? Not you. To your death you go. It's a big old tunnel pathway. What is going on here? I've lost it. Somebody explain to me what I'm doing wrong here. Wait, we're talking about crochet? You know, I can crochet. Yeah, honestly, I'm considering burning all the trees at this point. You know what? Yeah. They're in my way. Oh, wait a second. No, still not here. Good morning, good morning. I know there's a tunnel here somewhere. Okay, so here's the hole. See, here's part of the hole. Oh. I camouflaged it on accident. That's on me. I know, I'm so very, very pretty. Thank you for reminding me. Baked goods? Yeah. But I would make sure that you make them near when you're gonna give them. Just because, you know, I want to make sure they stay nice and fresh. Or if you can make yourself like, do you know what pizzelles are? Pizzelles are pretty good. Those are grateful, like a little Christmas gift. I'm not sure what that is. That sounds... Hi, Monroe. Monroe, sweetie. It's been a bit. How you been? Yeah. There we are. Because you don't do tasks that won't get done. That's valid. That's very valid, sweetie. Ooh, a cream puff. Oh, wait. So is the requirement that it has to be the entire tower? Because that's incredible. That's the greatest thing in the entire world if it has to be a tower. Imagine you making a cream puff and people are like, yeah, well, we made cream puffs. I'm like, no, the dish ain't done. What do you mean the dish ain't done? We made a cream puff. Yeah, but you gotta make a tower of cream puffs. And a tower don't count. That'd be the greatest problem in the entire world to have. I'm so excited for that. Somebody make me a tower of cream puffs, please. Prove you care about me, make me a tower of cream puffs. I feel like there should be 4, actually. Yeah, no, I agree. Could fix my problems, too. Fix most of my problems. What up, bug eyes? Best you can do is muffins. Can it be a tower of muffins? Can you make me a muffin tower? Because that could also fix my problems. Can they be lemon poppy seed? Maybe a blueberry one? I mean, you don't know if muffins will fix my problems or not. You ain't tried yet. Yay, I'm excited. It's muffin time. It's muffin time. Do you want to eat a muffin? No thanks, I'm full. Why won't you eat me? Why won't you let me die? Peanut butter cups but balls. You've never had a muffin? Interesting. Fix that. I can make cookies. I ain't got the things I need for muffins. Good morning. Welcome to the Epa stream. This is the stream where we be all lazy and fun. I kidnapped you probably on your, Oh, did I steal your kidneys? What did you see me do? think it's time I can go back to the normal voice. Hi, Chubb. How you doing, sweetie? You would start to list crimes. I've never done crimes. I've never once committed a crime. I have committed crimes. Only one or two. That's true, that's true. That's not a crime. Y'all went into my basement. What was I supposed to do? Not put you in a box? Like, I feel like that's justifiable at that point. No, you fell. Stop admitting to crimes. Oh, you're right. I probably should stop admitting to crimes. No, you entered my basement. That does not count. Boop, 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 boop. I only stole a little bit. Go in the corner for practicing dark magic. I only did a little bit. That boy can never walk again. Oh, that boy didn't want to walk. He didn't want to walk. Oh. Golly's in my gnome bacon now. Get pranked, nerd. You should have known better. I like that guy. He's funny. Only good gnomes get their gnome bacon. Namp Company has been here before at the basement, which is funny that you went into it anyways when you saw me building it. Ooh, Texas Roadhouse rolls would be great. Did I tell you all about my disappointing experience at Texas Roadhouse? It made me realize that I did not know how to order there. Like, have y'all ever ordered the fancy steaks at Texas Roadhouse, for those of you who have been there? For those of you who don't know what I'm talking about, Texas Roadhouse is a steakhouse. And most people order, like, you know, a New York strip or some basic steak. But they have some higher quality steaks on there as well. I didn't realize that when you walk in at the front, there's a window with some of the steaks out. And you're supposed to pick a steak, I believe. But if you just let them pick a steak, and they hate you for some reason, you might get a really low quality steak. And I guess they hated me for some reason, which I also then tipped the paycheck afterwards, because I thought I'd always wanted to try doing that. So I hope they felt guilty afterwards. That's fair. That is fair. I mean, yeah. No, but you have ping pong, and ping pong is fun. I went to ping pong while I was in the UK. I really liked it. If you haven't been ping pong and you live in the UK, you should go. The dim sum place. Very good, very cool. I enjoyed it a lot. Get a whole bunch of different stuff and it's delicious. 1, 2, 3, 4. Should I make it 4 high? Or should I make it 3 high? What are we feeling? 4 high or 3 high? Four? It's currently 4 wide. It's gonna be 4 wide. Yeah, I mean, if it's not your kind of food, that's valid. Very, very valid. Hmm. I'll put in the walls real quick. I want a different texture for the walls. What do we do? So like a polished stone might be nice. That's fair. Really? Y'all don't eat out at all? Like some of you? Alright. See. Y'all, 1 second. I just realized something. I'll be right back, okay? Alright, we're back. I'm proud of all of you. Sorry, it looks like I heard a door slam. And then I realized, I live alone in an apartment. So, what slammed? I think it was my upstairs neighbor coming home. But yeah, there was this whole moment where I was so confused. Because if a door slammed, it'd mean somebody's in my apartment. Which is terrifying. And it took my brain a while to process that, like, there shouldn't have been a door slamming. What? Yeah. Should I dig my pit deeper? I should dig my pit deeper soon. What am I doing? My brain is gone. Oh, I wanted a different wall texture. I want to see what we have. Maybe I'll make the floors. Alright, Here's the pupper. That's what I needed. He's just sitting up. Why? Y'all ever have a dog that would run away, but it really wouldn't? Like, it would like run outside exclusively, and then you just are like, why'd you do that? Where are you going? Hello, V-Lover. I don't like any of these. Yeah, I had this German Shepherd that would, it was really, really smart, and so it would unlock the back gate, and then it would run to the front of the house. I would lay on the front stoop and just watch the people walk by. And I had this other German Shepherd that, would, oh, my brain's gone again. We had a, honeysuckle bush. And the honeysuckle bush would, go over our fence. And we put a little log on the tree, on the fence. Like this kind of like little shaded spot for the dog to lay in, right? Well, instead of, laying in the shaded spot, the dog used the log to climb up the fence. It would lay on top of the honeysuckle bush so it could see everything that went around them. We also once had another family's dog over because they were like moving, and so they needed a place to keep the dog while they moved. And my German Shepherd hated that dog. Don't know why. And so she would go to the fence and unlock it so the other dog would leave and run. And she kept doing it every time. We had to buy a lock to put on the fence so she'd quit opening the fence to let the other dog out. I can help you open your lollipop, yeah. Was a smart dog. Too smart. Too smart for its own good. Alright, let's see what we have. I like the deep slate tile. Ooh. Ooh. That's kind of pretty. Wait a second. Wait a second. Why are you so pretty? I might use that. We're gonna go try that. Give me a second. Taking you with me. Hi, good morning, Fia. Could we get a shout out for the lovely, lovely Fia? They are a lovely goblin VTuber. Occasionally unhinged, very incredible. And recently did a little charity thing, a trans charity that is very, very cool. And I donated a little too, of course, as always. Trans rights are human rights. And if you don't agree, I'm sorry. But we probably won't get along. I do also. See, I've been thinking about that. I love dogs so very, very, very much. But I work, and I feel like it wouldn't be fair to leave a dog in my apartment, Even a tired, eepy old dog for like potentially more than 8 hours a day. I could go like 6 hours? Yeah, sure. But 8 hours just is not okay. You know what I mean? Oh, I like that. I like the tile. Exactly. Okay, we have some options here. Yeah, I need help. Yeah, that's why I have to think about like a cat, maybe. Get me one of those cats that are exactly like a dog, you know? Okay, do we want this? Or this for the floors? I think... left or right? What are we thinking? Just for the tunnel entrance. Eeny, meeny, miny, mo. Little void. You like the left? I like the left too. Yeah, we'll do that for the floor. Perfect. Thank y'all for being my little interior designers today. Y'all great help. I've seen Maine Coons and I like the idea of a Maine Coon. They sound fantastic. I'm also just like, that is a massive, massive cat. But I also, have you seen the, oh, what are they called? Brain? I need you to listen to me for a few seconds. Okay. What do you need? Cat, big cat. Savannah. Haha, it worked. Have you seen the Savannah cats? I always remember them because of Savannah, Georgia. Savannah cats are like one of the closest to wild cats that we have. Their generations are based off of how close they are to a wild cat. And oh my lord, those things get massive. And when I say massive, I mean massive. It's crazy. I see movement in the dark. That's my boy. That's my boy. Father, help. My boy. A Savannah cat named Athena. Oh, I like that a lot. I have no food. Oh no, hungry. I want a cat that likes water. I want a cat that wants to get in the shower. Because I always think it's so cute when you see those, or the dog. Have you seen those videos where the guy or somebody is just laying in the bathtub and the dog or cat just like gets in, just like move over. I'm joining you. I'm so hungry. Grilled cheese. Grilled cheese. Grilled cheese. Morning, Sarah. Sayora. I don't intentionally mispronounce your name, by the way. My brain keeps going to the first way I saw it because I'm too tired. I have to think about how your name is pronounced. I had a grilled cheese this morning. I grilled me a cheese. I grilled me a cheese in a toaster. It didn't burn. I was so happy. Wait, Saura? Your name's Saura? Wait. Oh, I've been getting it right this whole time. I forgot. You haven't been here for so long. You can't blame me for that one. Give me a second while I got called Jenny the other day, you know, so I feel you. I got called Jenny. I should make some tomato soup. I like tomato soup. It's so simple that you can actually take like any tomato-esque product and make it into tomato soup. You'd probably make tomato soup out of ketchup if you really wanted to. Oh, you rat cousin did call me Jennifer. Rat cousin also mocked my kidney stealing video. Oh, I love rat cousin. When I posted my engagement paint TikTok today or yesterday, I DM'd him and said, "You're not allowed to judge me for the engagement paint I'm about to do, though I know you're gonna make fun of me for it." What am I doing? Bed. Epic mentioned, "You killed my sheep, my favorite sheep." Oh, fine. Woof woof. Where's my clicker? I'll have to find it later. That's fair, that's valid. And that is exclusively why I mentioned the clicker. If you've ever seen Fiat, they have a routine that's a clicker and they immediately bark, and I think it's so funny. I wanted to see if they would bark at any clicker. Speaking of lovelies, this is Fia, if you haven't seen them before. We will be doing a lovely little collab on December 4th. And there will also be Mukia or Mumu, Magical John John, and now we'll be having Tippy Hendrix. It should be very, very cool. All really cool people. We're gonna be killing each other in the dark. It's great. Why is there a cave here? Bad cave. Wait, can you unironically what? Sit in a call with me and critique my Minecraft? Stabs you cutely. Ooh. I'm sorry. I regret that. Yes. Saura. You can sit in a call with me and critique my Minecraft sometime. You can also play Minecraft with me if you'd like. Yeah, I'm bad. Totally. Kami, I'm also looking forward to it. Welcome back, Adwan. Do you have a favorite song genre? Ooh, I do not. Because I have so many favorite song genres. Yeah, that's right, Chet. I'm one of those people where you go, hey, and not right now. Too early for you. I'm one of those people that you go, hey, what's your favorite music genre or favorite music? I'm like, I like everything. Because I do. I mean, I listen to Death Grips. I listen to experimental gothic, just noise. Actually, I used to know this experimental noise artist, and that was lovely. Industrial, punk, death metal, jazz, ska, hip-hop, rap, R&B, gangster rap, trap metal. How about this? I'm not in the mental state where I can physically talk to somebody else. I can read, but the idea of having anybody even be in a conversation with me right now sounds so awful. I don't want to hear anyone else's voice right now. I wish that was an option, IRL, to be like, sleep well, Fia, sleep well. The worst thing my friend has is one of those roommate dogs that bark at them and just pull it out. And then, wait. Okay, got you. Another time, definitely. Hello, HHVDES. Your name needs more vowels. I assume it's like Hades, but the A's upside down. But your name needs more vowels. It does not give me enough to grab onto. I'm sorry for critiquing your name. I genuinely wish, though, that I had the option just be walking around and being like, I don't want to hear anyone else talk today. Please, no words. And then people would just respect that, you know? But unfortunately, that doesn't happen. Yes, let me just turn on captions. Nice. Alright, your name is now prettier to me because it's Hades. I feel bad now when I give you sad. You don't do social interaction. That's valid. That's funny. I just realized I could have a day where I don't hear anybody else's voice today. It's not like I have to go anywhere. I could just stay home. Don't need to be in any calls, as long as I don't watch anything like social media wise. Today could just be a no hearing people day. Weird. I do want to watch some TV later, though. I've been watching all of Demon Slayer, and it has gotten better. I wasn't sure about it at the start, but Demon Slayer has been so nice. Solar, I'm not the best person to come with advice on that. Kill them in Minecraft. I mean, the best you can really do is, like, just say, hey, yo, do you mind being quiet? But there's really not much you can do. Headphones is really the only other option. Jibbits, did you have a therapist who corrected you? Because I had a therapist who corrected me. Or a psychiatrist. Back when I was younger, my parents were getting divorced. I went to a psychiatrist and I told him, I was antisocial. He's like, why do you hate society? I'm like, what? It's like, yeah, antisocial behavior. That's like psychopathic. And it's like, oh, it's like, actually, if you just like don't like talking to people, you're asocial. You know what I mean, though. You know what I mean. Because antisocial is actively hating, or like actively wanting to cause issues against people in society or others. Well, asocial is just not wanting to be around people. Fun, right? Yeah, that's fair. Because a person who commits crime is antisocial. A person who just doesn't want to be around people is asocial. It's valid, but also just annoying. They are. And I agree. Yo, how many of you are serial killer girlies? Or true crime girlies? Yeah, I figured as much. Girlies are obsessed with like crime documentaries. You do not have to be a girl to be a girly. The true crime. It's more just like an obsession with like listening to all of them. Do I like Japanese music? I do like Japanese music. There we go. Alright, let's do one of these. I think I want like a little gutter along the edge. What if I were to do this? Do some of this. Yoink. The dark romance girlies. Valid. Of course, y'all like dark romance. Should have expected as much. That's fair. That is fair. I did lock you all in the basement. I should not be surprised of how you turned out. I really like it at the bottom. I own a dark romance book, but I've never read it. Forbidden alchemy, that sounds interesting. What's so forbidden about the alchemy? Is the alchemy sex? Hey, yo. I think it's typically the idea of mixing horror with romance. Whether it is like a murderer or something dangerous. It's not necessarily scary, but it is like a threat of violence. Enjoy your lecture. Learning. Who learns? Okay. I don't want to do the ceilings. You taking me to class? I'm thinking. The growling is the thinky noise. I don't know what I want. I don't know what I want. I don't know what I want. I don't know why the grumbling became a habit, honestly. It wasn't unintentional at first, but it's become a habit now. If you don't know if you're hungry, you're probably hungry. Go eat something. Eat something. I know we'll need lighting, and we'll do lighting. I'll make some lanterns for that. But I need a ceiling. I'm gonna think about it. We'll come back. Meanwhile, in the back cave. Enjoy your legs. Enjoy your legs. And the stars at night are big and bright. Texas. Where's a nap when you need them? I'll do. Gotcha. I want to see if we can do this. I don't know how I would do this. I've never fallen in the pit because there's always been a fence around the pit. Because, yes, I know me. No, I know I would fall into the pit. That's why there is a fence around the pit. So, thank you for the book. I want to add more color to this. There's a book called House of Leaves. And it is, like, really crazy and difficult to read. It's more of like anything that you experience and you just read. And I'm trying to think of any way I could read it on stream, because I think it'd be really, really cool. But I don't think there's any way I could read it on stream. Too bad. Yeah. Well, because some of them you need to hold up to like a mirror to read. And some of them wrap around the pages and... yeah. That's what I should do. That's an idea. Oh, so you've seen House of Leaves. You know what I'm talking about. Okay, cool. I hope you're able to get some sleep then. Please relax. Enjoy your time here as best you can. Always glad to be of service. I read Faye. You know what? I need more vegetables to flush this out a bit. I'm thinking we get a little bit of every normal vegetable. So I need carrots, beets, even though nobody uses beets, but I'm gonna like the color. I don't think we'll have a row of pumpkins or watermelon. Is there any vegetables or things you can grow that I'm missing? Beets are one of them. Carrots. Potatoes. Just grain, right? Oh, Moonlight Mittens. Thank you so much for the sub. Thank you. I really do appreciate it. Welcome to the menagerie. I hope you enjoy your time here. Do I not have any carrots? Where did I put my carrots? Oh, I do need that. Interesting. My sleepy hello. Don't smother me. I need to breathe and live. We're gonna go hunt for carrots. I think there's a village not too far away from here. That I can find. Eat well. There's not corn in this game. That'd be cool if there was corn. Is it not? As far as I know. Unless I'm wrong, which I could very much well be. Very well be wrong. Their EP smother is not harmful. You say that until I am no longer alive. No NSFW for you. Naughty, naughty. Hello, cows. How are we doing today, cows? You doing good? Good to hear. Hello, brain. Sorry, my brain shut off for a little while there. What's everybody up to? How many people are in bed right now? How many people have just woken up? And how many people are already out on their day? That's what I want to know. Maths homework. Ooh, fun. Just woke up. Nice. About to have lunch? What are you going to do for lunch? We actually have people from all around the world here. So that's insane. Crazy. Tomato soup. Oh, Sonny, that sounds like so much fun. I'm a little envious. There are quite a few teachers here and a few librarians. Ghostly. You need to make yourself some dinner or lunch, sorry, today. Get yourself some lunch. It's gonna be good for you. Do you know what I've been doing recently? You're a sexy librarian. Gibbets, you are a sexy librarian. I've been doing rice porridge a lot. Because I have a habit of wanting to eat a lot of food. Like, my brain doesn't stop wanting to eat. And so it's a way for me to eat a lot of food while not overeating. It's quite effective, honestly. Exactly, kanji. So, like, ooh, get some eeps. So I did, it's like half a cup of uncooked rice, right? And then you do 8 parts water to it. You add you might add a bouillon cube, or if you want something sweet or whatever. Add a little protein and a veggie. You just let it sit. And it soaks up all the water until it's super, super soft. And suddenly you have this big old container of porridge. Filling. Plenty to eat. Very nice. No. Gifted. Oh. Thank you for the gifts, anonymous gifter. I really do appreciate it. And thank you for the follow. Welcome, welcome, welcome. I don't know how to pronounce your name, but I like it. Don't drug you to sleep. I can't drug you to sleep. We can hit you over the head with like a frying pan if that'll make you feel better. I have a cast iron one in the kitchen. It might, you know. Oh, we reached sub goal? Hey! Thank y'all. Thank y'all so much. I love hitting the sub goal. You feel sick, hate you. That's no. Let's go. Let's go. Y'all, I might need to rebuild my monster spawner, by the way. It isn't working the way I wanted it to. I don't have a sword. I don't have anything to make a sword out of. We're gonna go look for iron. Oh, 3,500, excuse me? Really? That's crazy. By the way, I'm gonna need to apologize to YouTube or all of the people who watch me from YouTube. Originally I was like, ugh, YouTube barely gives me anything right. Well, that's why I prefer using TikTok, because I would always get such better interaction over there. Yeah, YouTube, I underestimated your game. Hey, I'm gonna look at these real quick. We're gonna talk stats. One sec, while I drink. Oh, it'll be fine. Today we're staying up in the bedroom. Let's see. You'll be nice and cozy today. Nice and cozy. Yeah, y'all understand that this is my hyperfixation, right? Like, content creation is my hyperfixation. This is more important to me than like anything else because it's so much fun. We're gonna talk some analytics. So when I started over on YouTube, my videos were getting like maybe 100 views. We get a few that would crack 1,000, right? 1,000 was like a rare thing. It must be like 200 here, 200 there, 1,000, 200, whatever. Yeah, I just realized recently that a lot of my videos are now up to 2,000, 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 views, which is a pretty solid place to be at. Not only that, they're starting to get a lot more comments and interactions. And so I had been kind of like not paying attention to it much earlier. But like, with very little interaction, some of these have like 242 comments. So, yeah, I feel guilty that I was kind of ignoring it. And now I'm going to start more interacting with YouTube a little bit more. Because it's not fair, you know, to just pay attention to one platform. I was just like, it doesn't seem there was like much of a point. Anyways. Well, so some of them weren't like getting anything. Instagram still hates me. But I'm gonna figure out Instagram. I think I'm gonna make Instagram, which we talked about before, more of a behind the scenes, more of a just like talking about stuff, because it seems like that's what the people on Instagram like. Plus, I haven't used any of like the photo upload features, and Instagram likes when you upload photos. I don't understand. What are stories? Kadmia, can you teach me Instagram, please? Can you sit down with me and be like, here it is, Gene. You silly, silly little stupid boy. Here's how you use this platform. Welcome back. Which one of you are Karens? Feed me a spoon. Yeah, let me crash out on Instagram. Sorry, crash course on Instagram. Don't try to kiss. Stop trying to kiss me. I wonder if I'll ever have to deal with that. Imagine going to a convention and somebody tries to kiss you. What'd you do? Personally, I'd fight them. You gotta cancel. Give me a second. Okay, this village, they're all leather workers. They're all leather workers. I've never seen where they go to every one of the cauldrons and everybody becomes leather worker. This is such a nice town. I must protect this town. I have an idea. Kit. So we have a problem. Massive town, right? Right next door. Y'all, I'm sorry y'all have to deal with all these situations. It is not okay that we are in a world, in a society where these kind of things happen. I'm sorry that you've all ever had those experiences. As you should. Books. Keeper. Meep. That's a lot of maps. Well, I have an idea. That's valid, that's valid. There's a lot of these guys. Does anybody know what the cartographer table does? Because I don't understand it. See, that's the house I don't understand that. Creepy old man. Oh nice, Minecraft is fun. Makes a map of the local area? Oh, and you can make a bigger map? Okay. Wait, but like, But doesn't if I just okay, so am I dumb? I might be dumb. So if I want to make a map of the local area, don't I just pull out a map? Like, one sec, I need an empty stack first. So if I do this, it makes a map, right? This is just a local map. Oh yeah, well, yeah, valid. Let's stop talking about this, y'all. Valid, I hadn't thought about it. Okay, so this is a local map, right? But, so what's the point of a cartographer table? I can Google it. Okay, wait. Cartographer tables. Cloning, zooming out, and locking maps. It also serves as a cartographer's job site block. Okay. Alright. Oh, a locator map. What is a locator map? Oh, that's Bedrock Edition only. Okay. I don't know what a locator map is, but it sounds kind of cool. Got it. Okay, interesting. Okay, yes, I do want to talk about that. Brain. Oh, where'd it go? Give me a second, we're almost there. Fair. Do y'all have fairs? I suppose every place has a fair, right? Do y'all know what fairs are? Okay. What kind of food are served at your fairs? Have fun, zombie. Okay. So if I put out, it gets bigger. We need more. All kinds of burgers, hot dogs, cotton candy. Okay, nice. I like that. I like the look. Well. Hopefully I'll get to experience some fairs soon. Yeah, one day I'll open a public Minecraft server, but it'll be a while. Fried or smoked? Oh, I love smoked. There's a fair that happens here every year. It's a winter market. And occasionally they'll have like German food, and I want to go. I want to get the German food. I'm also worried about running into Max there, though, so we'll see. Tamale. Ooh, deep fried Oreos. I love my German food. Let me see if I can get my eyebrows done today. Street corn, very nice. Thank you for the follow, Mikey. Welcome to the menagerie. Okay, I want to see how this cartographer table works, because my goal right now that I want to do is I want to get that on a map. I don't have fishing here. Sorry, honey. Ain't my kind of thing. Why, an elephant ear? What's an elephant ear? Spirit, dragon, fruit. I'm sorry, what? Okay, you gotta tell me what this is. Probably until my normal time. Where'd the cartographer go? What are you? No, you have 6 minutes. 2 hours. Well, man, the street can go to elote. I do like elote. Elote is really good. Were you time checking me? Is that what was happening? Oh, lovelies, I forgot to mention, I may not be doing a morning stream tomorrow. I will still be doing an afternoon stream, but I am going to use tomorrow morning to catch up on sleep. Because I have not been getting enough sleep. Where is the cartographer's house? Is it here? Here it is. Okay. So yes, just letting y'all know in advance, and we'll post it on the Twitters and the Discord. I'll be taking some eeps tomorrow morning. Loda is like a corn cup thingy. Okay. Yep. How far can we zoom out? It went out in the direction I don't want it to go out in. I wanted it to go in that direction. But it went out in a different direction. Okay. 4 times? Wait, Gibbets, what do you mean 4 times? That's what we're gonna do. That'll do. Okay, I just need to remember that I need to come to the corner of this map to get over there. Cool. I like the maps. The maps are cool. maps are cool. Yeah, oh, look how cool that is. I like how that's like carved out. I love that. Here's what we're gonna do. Good morning, good morning, good morning. This'll work. I can't see on the map. Lame. Lame. It is almost lunchtime. There's something bigger on the map. Do you like stealing people's pets? Rude. Dang. Alright. I'll grab an Eeps. Sure, I know you live in a different part of the world, but I still keep thinking like, oh no. There's gotta be stuff around me. It's gonna be so cold if I go outside. I'm sleeping with you. Okay, here's the plan. I need to find a whole bunch of iron, okay? And then we're gonna try to transport villagers to the home so I can make my own villager town, because I want my own little villager town. I think it'd be so cute. Yeah, but you don't live in Colorado, do you? Unless you do, in which case... I know, right? Not to be like, I'm glad the English language exists, but I'm glad the English language exists because it's luckily become a unifying language where people can all speak it, even if it's not your primary language. Having a language of business is amazing. Stone mountains. You think this mountain will have iron? Yeah, you know. I mean, anywhere above me is pretty much Russia. So that, no. Lunar, yeah, it is, but also I'm gonna pretend it's not, in which case, you know. Oh yeah, I hear Java's jarring, but you get cool new mods and stuff. I do like sweaters, but I don't want snow. I don't want to be that cold. I need to find mountains. Where are the mountains? Hallo, 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 liebe Leute. Wie geht's? Alles gut? Ich glaube, jetzt muss ich gehen. Aber es hat viel Spaß gemacht. Und so. Where is... Look, another village. Okay, we need plenty of iron so I can make a train track so I can get villagers back to my town, my little home. It's gonna be great. Okay. I think it's about time. We call it here, lovelies. I've had a lovely stream with all of you. I really appreciate y'all coming by. You are all the best. You're all the best. So very, very incredible. But thank you all for being here. And we're gonna call it. What was your favorite part of stream, lovelies? Or was it all amazing? Not that we had much variation in stream. Was it when I left and you could play the game, Southern? No, that one's always fun. That one is always fun. My favorite part was me. Oh, thank you. And the food talk. Food is so good. Food is so good. What is this person doing? Oh, they're doing more Minecraft. Yay. But we raided into them yesterday, so we'll do Hoshi? How are you feeling about Hoshi? Well, we can do Beamy. Hoshi's always a vibe, aren't they? We'll do Hoshi today.
Really good day. Which I wouldn't say today is like.
Oh, Hoshi's not ASMR today. Because we'll do Beamy today. You all say hi for me, okay? Behave yourselves. Just come on in. Say, hey, what's up? Be sweet, be kind, be lovely. And I'll send you all off. And we're gonna say we're gonna send them a good luck with partner raid. Because right now they are trying to hit partner. I think this is a good little raid message. Hi, lovelies. You've been so very incredible. Appreciate y'all coming by. Say hi for me. And I'll see you all next time. Bye, sweetie.